A man didn't know his wife was a millionaire. One day, he decides to divorce her to be with his mistress. But when he discovered how much she earned, he nearly fainted. There were 200 missed calls to his wife. Before hearing this surprising story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Sarah Thompson had always been a determined woman. At 45, she was the personification of professional success. Executive director of one of the largest technology companies in the country, respected by her peers and admired by her subordinates. Her office atop a skyscraper in downtown Chicago was the silent witness to years of dedication and hard work. On that Monday morning, as she observed the city awakening below, Sarah felt an unusual weight on her shoulders. It wasn't the usual stress of work, nor the pressure of leading a team of hundreds of people. It was something deeper, more personal. Her cell phone vibrated, bringing her back to reality. It was a message from Michael, her husband of 20 years. "Don't wait up for dinner. I have an important meeting." Sarah sighed, putting the device away, without responding. This wasn't the first time Michael had cancelled their plans at the last minute, and she knew it wouldn't be the last. Turning her attention to the pile of documents on her desk, Sarah immersed herself in work, doing what she knew best, solving problems and making tough decisions. The hours flew by, and when she finally looked at the clock, it was already past 9 in the evening. The drive home was silent, the streets of Chicago already emptied of the evening rush. As she entered her luxurious apartment in the Gold Coast neighborhood, Sarah was greeted by silence. No sign of Michael. As she prepared a simple dinner for herself, Sarah reflected on her life. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. A successful career, a stable marriage, a comfortable life. But inside, something was wrong. The distance between her and Michael seemed to grow with each passing day, and Sarah couldn't help but wonder where she had gone wrong. Sitting at the kitchen table with a plate of salad in front of her, Sarah found herself doing something she rarely did, crying. The tears fell silently, mixing with the salad dressing. It was as if years of repressed emotions had finally found an outlet. It was in this moment of vulnerability that Sarah made a decision. She needed to do something to save her marriage. Tomorrow, she thought, tomorrow I'll talk to Michael. We'll work this out together. With this resolution in mind, Sarah went to bed, hoping that sleep would bring some comfort. But sleep didn't come easily. She lay awake, mentally reviewing the last few years of her marriage, looking for the exact moment when things started to unravel. Was it when she accepted the promotion to executive director 3 years ago? Michael had seemed happy for her at the time, but something in his smile seemed forced. Or maybe it was before that, when she started earning more than him, and decided not to mention it to avoid hurting his ego. Sarah had always believed she was protecting Michael by not revealing the true extent of her financial success. Her annual salary of $1 million was a well-kept secret, known only to her and the company's human resources department. She thought she was doing the right thing, maintaining a balance in the relationship. Now lying alone in her king-size bed, she wasn't so sure. The sound of a door opening and closing pulled her from her thoughts. Michael was home. Sarah remained motionless, pretending to be asleep, as she listened to his footsteps approaching. The bedroom. She felt the mattress sink as he lay down, but he made no move to get closer to her. The space between them in the bed felt like an abyss. The next morning, Sarah woke up determined. She was going to talk to Michael, open her heart, try to understand what was happening between them. But when she turned to his side of the bed, she found only emptiness. Michael had already left. Frustrated, but not defeated, Sarah prepared for another day of work. As she got ready, she planned how she would approach Michael that night. They needed to talk. They needed to reconnect. She was willing to do whatever it took to save their marriage. At the office, Sarah tried to focus on the day's tasks, but her thoughts kept returning to Michael and the conversation they needed to have. She cancelled some less urgent meetings and delegated some tasks, determined to leave earlier to prepare a special dinner for her and Michael. At 5 o'clock, something unusual for her, Sarah was leaving the office. On the way home, she stopped at a gourmet market, carefully choosing ingredients for Michael's favorite dish, mushroom risotto. She also bought a bottle of the red wine they used to drink in the early years of their marriage. At home, Sarah dedicated herself to cooking with the same commitment she applied to her work. The delicious aroma of risotto soon filled the apartment. She set the table with care, lit some candles and put on soft background music. At 8 o'clock, everything was ready. Sarah sat at the table, anxious, waiting to hear the sound of the key in the door. But minutes turned into hours, and Michael didn't appear. She sent messages, tried to call, but got no response. At midnight, Sarah finally accepted that Michael wasn't coming. With a heavy sigh, she put away the untouched food and blew out the candles. As she cleaned the kitchen, silent tears ran down her face. She didn't know what hurt more, Michael's absence or the realization that maybe he didn't care anymore. That night, lying alone once again, Sarah made another decision. If Michael didn't want to talk, she would have to take more drastic measures. Tomorrow, she thought, tomorrow I'll make an appointment with a couples therapist. We need professional help. With this new plan in mind, Sarah finally fell asleep, unaware that the next day would bring a turn of events that would change her life forever. The day dawned gray in Chicago, as if the sky reflected Sarah's state of mind. She woke up early, determined to put her plan into action. Before even having her breakfast, she picked up her cell phone and started searching for recommended couples therapists in the city. As she scrolled through the screen, a sudden discomfort hit her. A sharp pain in her abdomen made her double over, dropping the phone on the floor. The pain was intense, unlike anything she had ever felt before. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, but the discomfort only increased. With trembling hands, she managed to reach for the phone and call her assistant, Emily. I need to cancel my appointments for today, she said between gasps. I'm not feeling well. Emily, worried about the tone of her usually composed boss's voice, insisted on calling an ambulance. Sarah, always reluctant to show weakness, initially resisted, but the pain was becoming unbearable. Finally, she agreed. While waiting for the ambulance, Sarah tried once more to contact Michael. Call after call, she only managed to reach his voicemail. Michael, she said in her last voice message, her voice trembling with pain and emotion. I'm going to the hospital. Please meet me there. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and lights. In the emergency room, Sarah was quickly attended to, subjected to a battery of tests. The hours dragged on, each minute marked by Michael's absence and Sarah's growing anxiety. Finally, a doctor entered her room, his face too serious to bring good news. Mrs. Thompson, he began, his voice gentle but firm, we found something in your tests that concerns us. The words that followed hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. Cancer, early stage but aggressive. She would need immediate treatment. Sarah's world seemed to crumble at that moment. Always strong, always in control, she now felt completely lost. Silent tears ran down her face as the doctor explained the next steps, possible treatments, chances of recovery. Amidst the whirlwind of emotions and information, one thought persisted. Where was Michael? She needed him now more than ever. As if answering her thoughts, her cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Michael. On my way to the hospital. I'll be there in 15 minutes. A sigh of relief escaped Sarah's lips. Despite everything, Michael was coming. They would face this together, she thought. This could be the chance for reconnection that their marriage so desperately needed. The minutes dragged on as Sarah waited. She mentally rehearsed how she would break the news to Michael, imagining how he would react, hoping for his support and comfort. Finally, the door to the room opened. Michael entered, looking uncomfortable and out of place in the hospital environment. His eyes avoided Sarah's, focusing instead on the medical equipment around them. Michael, Sarah began, her voice trembling, I have something to tell you. But before she could continue, Michael interrupted her. Sarah, I have something to say too, he spoke, his voice strangely distant. I think we should get divorced. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah looked at Michael, incredulous, certain that she had heard wrong, but the expression on his face left no doubt. Divorce? She finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Now, Michael, I just found out I have cancer. For a moment, something like guilt crossed Michael's face. but it was quickly replaced by a mask of indifference. "I'm sorry about that, Sarah, really. But things haven't been working between us for a long time, you must have noticed." Sarah felt as if she were in some bizarre nightmare. How could he be doing this now? "Michael, please," she pleaded, "can we talk about this? I know we have problems, but we can work them out together. I need you now." Michael sighed, running his hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "Sarah, I met someone else. We've been together for a few months. I was going to tell you, but it never seemed like the right time." Each word was like a knife in Sarah's heart. Betrayal, all those cancelled dinners, the nights he came home late. It all made sense now. "Who is she?" Sarah asked, her voice surprisingly calm. "Does it matter?" Michael replied, avoiding her gaze. "It matters to me." Michael hesitated for a moment before answering. "It's Jessica, from the marketing department." Jessica, the young intern that Sarah had personally hired 2 years ago. The irony of the situation didn't escape Sarah. "How long?" 6 months, Michael admitted. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I didn't want things to end like this." Sarah closed her eyes, trying to process everything that was happening. In a matter of hours, her life had turned upside down. Cancer, betrayal, divorce. It was too much to absorb. When she opened her eyes again, there was a new determination in her gaze. "Leave," she said simply. "Sarah, Leave, Michael. Now." Without another word, Michael turned and left the room, leaving Sarah alone with her pain and anger. As soon as the door closed, the tears Sarah had been holding back began to fall freely. She cried for the diagnosis, for the end of her marriage, for all the lies and betrayals. She cried until she had no more tears left. When the crying finally ceased, Sarah felt strangely calm. A sense of clarity invaded her. She had 2 battles ahead of her now, one against cancer and another to rebuild her life, and she was determined to win both. At that moment, alone in a hospital room, Sarah made a promise to herself. She would fight against the disease, fight to recover emotionally, fight to emerge from this experience stronger than ever. The path ahead would be difficult, she knew, but Sarah Thompson had never backed down from a challenge, and she wasn't about to start now. With this resolution in mind, Sarah pressed the button to call the nurse. It was time to start her treatment. It was time to fight. The days that followed Sarah's diagnosis and Michael's shocking revelation were a whirlwind of emotions and activities. The hospital became a second home for her, with a routine of exams, consultations, and the start of treatment occupying most of her time. Sarah, always organized and efficient, approached her battle against cancer with the same determination she applied in her professional life. She extensively researched her condition, asked incisive questions to the doctors, and meticulously prepared for each stage of treatment. However, in the moments of silence, when she was alone in her hospital room, the reality of her situation weighed on her. The void left by Michael's betrayal was palpable, an open wound that hurt as much as her physical condition. A week after the start of her treatment, Sarah received an unexpected visit. Emily, her assistant, appeared at the hospital with a stack of documents and a worried look. "Sarah, I'm sorry to bother you, but there are some things that need your urgent attention at the office," Emily said, hesitant. Sarah adjusted herself in the bed, grateful for the distraction. "Don't worry, Emily, what do we have?" As they reviewed the documents, Sarah felt a spark of her old energy. Even confined to a hospital bed, her mind was as sharp as ever. She made decisions, gave clear instructions, and even had some innovative ideas for future projects. "Sarah, you're amazing," Emily commented in awe. "How do you manage to handle all this and still think about work?" Sarah smiled, but it was a tired smile. "Work has always been my refuge, Emily, now more than ever." After Emily's departure, Sarah became pensive. Her career had always been her priority, the source of her strength and identity. Now she wondered if it hadn't also been the reason for the failure of her marriage. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. It was her oncologist, Dr. Anderson. "How are you feeling today, Sarah?" he asked, consulting his clipboard. "Physically, I'm coping well with the treatment," Sarah replied. Emotionally, well, let's say I've had better days. Dr. Anderson nodded understandingly. That's understandable. You're going through a lot right now. Have you considered talking to a psychologist? We have excellent professionals here at the hospital. Sarah hesitated. The idea of opening up to a stranger made her uncomfortable, but she also knew she needed help to process everything that was happening. Maybe that's a good idea, she finally admitted. Great, the doctor smiled. I'll make the referral. Oh, and Sarah, I have good news. Your latest tests show that the treatment is responding well. We're on the right track. That news brought immense relief to Sarah. It was the first time in weeks that she felt something close to hope. The next day, Sarah had her first session with Dr. Laura, the hospital psychologist. Initially reluctant, Sarah was surprised to find herself speaking openly about her feelings, fears, and frustrations. Sarah, what you're going through is incredibly difficult, Dr. Laura said gently. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, betrayed, scared. But it's also important to remember that you're not alone on this journey. Sometimes it feels like I am, Sarah admitted, her voice breaking slightly. Michael was supposed to be my partner, my support. And now you have the opportunity to rediscover your own strength, the psychologist completed. Sarah, you've built an incredible career. You're facing this disease with courage. You're stronger than you think. Dr. Laura's words stayed with Sarah in the days that followed. As she continued her treatment, she began to reflect on her life, her choices, her values. One afternoon, while idly flipping through a magazine at the hospital, Sarah came across an article about mindfulness and self-care. Intrigued, she began to read. The words seemed to speak directly to her, offering a perspective she had never considered before. Inspired, Sarah decided to incorporate some mindfulness practices into her daily routine. She started with small guided meditations, using an app on her smartphone. At first, she found it difficult to quiet her always active mind, but over time she began to feel the benefits. As the weeks passed, Sarah noticed a subtle change in herself. Although the treatment was exhausting and the side effects challenging, she felt more centered, more at peace with herself. A month after the start of her treatment, Sarah received another unexpected visit. This time it was Jessica, the woman Michael had cheated on her with. Sarah, I came to apologize. Jessica said, looking genuinely remorseful. What we did was unforgivable. Sarah observed the young woman for a moment, surprised to realize that she didn't feel the anger she expected. Instead, she felt a strange compassion. Jessica, what happened? Happened, Sarah said finally. I can't say it didn't hurt me because that would be a lie, but holding grudges would only harm me. I forgive you. The words came out of her mouth before she could think, and Sarah was surprised to realize that she really meant them. Forgiveness, she discovered, wasn't for Jessica or Michael, but for herself. Jessica seemed shocked by the response. Thank you, Sarah. You're an amazing person. I'm really sorry for everything. After Jessica's departure, Sarah felt strangely light. It was as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She realized that by forgiving, she was freeing herself from the past and making room for a new future. That night, Sarah had a long phone conversation with her best friend, Olivia, who lived in Los Angeles. Sarah, you won't believe it, Olivia said excitedly. I managed to get an extended vacation. I'm coming back to Chicago next week. I'll stay there with you for a while. The news filled Sarah with joy. Olivia had been her confidant all these years, even at a distance. Having her close now would be an immense comfort. Olivia, that's wonderful, Sarah replied, feeling tears of happiness form in her eyes. I can't wait to see you. In the days that followed, Sarah found herself anxiously awaiting Olivia's arrival. It was as if a ray of sunshine had penetrated the dark clouds that had been hovering over her life. Meanwhile, her treatment continued. The doctors were optimistic about her progress, though they warned that there was still a long road ahead. Sarah faced each chemotherapy session with determination, visualizing each drop of the medication as a soldier in her personal battle. One afternoon, while waiting for another treatment session, Sarah noticed an elderly lady sitting alone in the waiting room looking scared and lost. Moved by an impulse, Sarah approached her. "Hello," she said gently. "First time here?" The lady nodded, her eyes watery. "Yes, I don't know what to expect. I'm so scared." Sarah held the lady's hand. "I understand. I was terrified my first time too. But you know what? We're stronger than we think. If you'd like, I can stay here with you until they call your name." The relief on the lady's face was palpable. "Thank you, dear. That would mean a lot to me." The two talked for almost an hour, sharing their stories, fears, and hopes. When the lady was called for her treatment, she hugged Sarah tightly. "You're an angel," she said. "Thank you for making this day a little less scary." As she watched the lady walk away, Sarah felt a wave of emotion. For the first time since her diagnosis, she felt that she could make a difference even in her current situation. It was a powerful feeling. That night, lying in her hospital bed, Sarah reflected on the events of the day. She realized that amidst all the pain and uncertainty, she was discovering a new version of herself. A Sarah who was more compassionate, more present, more connected with others and with herself. With that comforting thought, she fell asleep, eager for what the new day would bring. Tomorrow, she knew, would be another step in her journey of healing, not just physical, but emotional and spiritual as well. Olivia's arrival brought new energy to Sarah's life. Her friend, with her vibrant and optimistic way, was like a breath of fresh air amid the hospital routine. "Sarah, you look beautiful," Olivia exclaimed as she entered the room, hugging Sarah carefully, but with all the affection of years of friendship. Sarah laughed, running her hand through her now thinner hair due to the treatment. "Oh, Olivia, always exaggerating, but it's so good to see you. How was your trip?" The two friends spent hours catching up. Olivia told about her life in Los Angeles, her projects, and even a new romance that was beginning to blossom. Sarah, in turn, opened up completely about everything that had happened in recent months. "I can't believe Michael did that," Olivia said, indignant. "What a jerk." Sarah sighed. "At first, I was furious too. But you know what, Olivia? I think this was a wake-up call for me. I was so focused on my career, on financial success, that I neglected other areas of my life, including my marriage." Olivia looked at her friend with admiration. "Sarah, you've always been the strongest person I know. But now, you're simply amazing. This attitude of yours, this capacity for reflection, I'm impressed." Olivia's words touched Sarah deeply. It was good to have someone who had known her for so long recognizing her personal growth. In the days that followed, Olivia became a constant presence at the hospital. She accompanied Sarah to chemotherapy sessions, brought books and magazines to distract her, and often just stayed there, offering silent company when Sarah didn't have the energy to talk. One afternoon, while Sarah was resting after a particularly difficult treatment session, Olivia decided to approach a subject that had been on her mind. "Sarah, can I ask you a question?" Olivia began, hesitant. Sarah opened her eyes, noticing her friend's serious tone. "Of course, Olivia. What is it?" "Why did you never tell Michael about your true salary? $1 million a year, that's incredible, Sarah. Why hide it?" The question caught Sarah by surprise. It was something she had been questioning herself lately. I guess I was afraid," Sarah admitted after a moment of reflection. "Afraid that it would change the dynamic between us. Michael had always been so proud of being the provider, you know. I didn't want to hurt his ego." Olivia nodded, understanding. "I see, but don't you think this omission might have contributed to the distance between you?" Olivia's words hit Sarah like a bolt of clarity. She had never considered things from that angle. "You're right, Olivia," Sarah said, feeling a mixture of guilt and understanding. "I was so worried about protecting his feelings that I ended up creating a barrier between us. A healthy relationship should be based on honesty, shouldn't it?" Olivia smiled, holding her friend's hand. "Exactly, and you know what? Maybe this is a lesson for the future. Whoever comes into your life from now on, remember, you're amazing, Sarah. Your success, your intelligence, your strength, all of this is part of who you are. Never diminish yourself to make others feel better." Olivia's words echoed in Sarah's mind for days. She began to reflect on how her past choices had shaped her life and relationships. Meanwhile, Sarah's treatment continued to progress. The doctors were optimistic about her response to chemotherapy, though they warned that there was still a long way to go. One day, during a routine consultation, Dr. Anderson brought a proposal that caught Sarah by surprise. "Sarah, there's a new experimental treatment that's showing promising results in cases like yours," he explained. "We'd like to consider including you in the testing program." Sarah listened attentively as the doctor explained the details of the treatment, the potential benefits, and the risks involved. "It's an important decision," Dr. Anderson concluded. "You don't need to give me an answer now. Talk to your loved ones, think it over, and let me know when you're ready." That night, Sarah discussed the proposal with Olivia. "What do you think?" "Olivia, should I try it?" Olivia pondered for a moment before responding. "Sarah, you've always been a person who embraces challenges. You built an incredible career by taking calculated risks. Maybe it's time to apply that same mindset to your treatment." Sarah smiled, grateful for her friend's perspective. "You're right. I think I'll accept. After all, what do I have to lose?" The next morning, Sarah informed Dr. Anderson of her decision. The new treatment would begin the following week. As she prepared for this new phase, Sarah received an unexpected call. It was Emily, her assistant. "Sarah, sorry to bother you, but a situation has come up at the office that needs your urgent attention," Emily explained, sounding worried. "What happened, Emily?" "It's the Phoenix Project. There's been a problem with one of our main investors. They're threatening to withdraw support if we don't resolve some issues immediately." The Phoenix Project was the company's largest undertaking at the moment, an ambitious plan to revolutionize the technology sector in the United States. Losing this investor's support would be a devastating blow. Sarah felt the adrenaline rush through her veins. Despite her condition, her leadership instinct spoke louder. "I understand, Emily. Organize a video conference with the core team and the investor for tomorrow. I'll handle this." After hanging up, Sarah noticed Olivia's concerned look. "Sarah, are you sure? You shouldn't be stressing yourself with work right now." Sarah smiled, feeling a familiar sense of determination. "Olivia, work has always been my passion. I can't simply ignore something so important. Besides, I think it'll be good for me to feel useful again." The next day, Sarah conducted the video conference directly from her hospital room. Dressed in work clothes for the first time in weeks, she felt invigorated. During the meeting, Sarah demonstrated all the competence and charisma that had taken her to the top of her career. She listened to the investors' concerns, proposed creative solutions, and at the end of 2 intense hours, not only had she saved the investment, but had also managed to increase it. When the call ended, Sarah leaned back in bed, exhausted but satisfied. Olivia, who had watched everything in silence, was speechless. "Sarah, that was incredible. You just saved a multi-million-dollar project from your hospital bed." Sarah laughed, feeling more alive than she had felt in weeks. "I guess I still have some fire in me, don't I?" That night, as she reflected on the day's events, Sarah had an epiphany. She realized that her battle against cancer didn't mean she had to give up who she was. She could be a patient fighting for her health and still be the strong and capable leader she had always been. With this new understanding, Sarah felt renewed. She was ready to face the new experimental treatment, ready to continue guiding her company from a distance, and more importantly, ready to rediscover and embrace all facets of herself. As she fell asleep, Sarah felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Tomorrow would be another day of struggle, but she was prepared. With Olivia by her side, her team trusting her, and a new perspective on her own strength, Sarah knew she could face any challenge that came her way. The future, for the first time in a long time, seemed bright and full of possibilities. The weeks that followed brought an intense routine for Sarah. The new experimental treatment demanded more frequent and sometimes more grueling sessions. At the same time, she dedicated herself to supervising the Phoenix Project remotely, participating in video conferences, and making crucial decisions from her hospital bed. One morning, as Sarah was preparing for another treatment session, she received an unexpected visit. It was Ryan, the young intern she had hired shortly before her diagnosis. "Ms. Thompson," he said, looking nervous but determined. "I'm sorry for coming without notice, but I needed to speak to you in person." Sarah invited him in, intrigued. "What's wrong, Ryan? Any problem at the office?" Ryan shook his head. "No, it's not that. Actually, I came to thank you. You may not know, but the Phoenix Project, it changed my life." The young man then told Sarah how the project had created opportunities for students from underprivileged communities, like him, to have access to cutting-edge technology and specialized training. "Thanks to this project, I not only got the internship at the company, but I'm also about to graduate in software engineering. You're changing lives, Ms. Thompson." Ryan's words touched Sarah deeply. Amidst all her personal struggles, she had forgotten the broader impact of her work. "Thank you for telling me this, Ryan," she said, moved. "Sometimes we get so focused on numbers and results that we forget the true purpose behind what we do." After Ryan's departure, Sarah became thoughtful. She began to reflect on the legacy she wanted to leave, not just in the company but in the world. That afternoon, during her chemotherapy session, Sarah shared her thoughts with Olivia. "Olivia, I think it's time to expand the Phoenix Project," she said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I don't want it to be just a technology project. I want it to be a platform for social transformation." Olivia smiled, recognizing the familiar fire in her friend's eyes. "That sounds amazing, Sarah, but are you sure you want to take on more responsibilities now? You're already dealing with so much." Sarah nodded with determination. "That's precisely why, Olivia. Fighting cancer has made me realize how precious life is. If I can use my position and resources to make a difference, why not do it now?" In the weeks that followed, Sarah began working on an ambitious plan to expand the Phoenix Project. She convened virtual meetings with her team, consulted experts in corporate social responsibility, and even began to outline partnerships with NGOs and educational institutions. The work was exhausting, especially considering her health condition, but Sarah felt more alive than ever. Each new challenge, each obstacle overcome was proof of her resilience. One day, during one of her therapy sessions with Dr. Laura, Sarah shared her new plans and the excitement she felt. "It's wonderful to see you so excited, Sarah," Dr. Laura commented. "But tell me, how are you handling the balance between your treatment and this new project?" The question made Sarah pause. She realized that in her enthusiasm, she might be neglecting her self-care. "I guess I've been throwing myself headfirst into work," she admitted. Maybe I'm using this as a way to escape the reality of my diagnosis." Dr. Laura nodded understandingly. "It's natural to want to feel productive and useful, Sarah, but remember, your health should be the #1 priority now. How about we think of strategies to better balance your activities?" That conversation was a turning point for Sarah. She realized she needed to find a balance between her passion for work and the need to take care of herself. In the days that followed, Sarah implemented some changes. She established fixed hours to work on the project, ensuring she also had time to rest and dedicate herself to relaxing activities. Olivia helped her create a routine of meditation and light exercises, approved by the doctors. Meanwhile, the new experimental treatment was beginning to show promising results. In a follow-up consultation, Dr. Anderson brought encouraging news. "Sarah, the latest tests show a significant reduction in the tumor," he said, smiling. "We still have a long way to go, but these results are very encouraging." The news filled Sarah with renewed hope. She felt that all her efforts, the treatment, the work on the project, taking care of herself, were converging into something positive. One afternoon, while working on her laptop in the hospital room, Sarah received an unexpected call. It was Michael. "Sarah," he said, his voice hesitant, I heard you're responding well to the treatment. I'm happy for you." Sarah remained silent for a moment, surprised by the call. "Thank you, Michael," she finally responded, keeping a neutral tone. "Listen," Michael continued, "I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to, but I needed to tell you something. I made a terrible mistake. What I did to you, there's no justification." Sarah listened attentively, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Part of her wanted to hang up, another part was curious to hear what he had to say. "I realized," Michael went on, "that I threw away something precious out of pure vanity and insecurity. You've always been amazing, Sarah. Your strength, your intelligence, your success. I should have celebrated all of that with you, not felt threatened." "Michael," Sarah interrupted gently, "I appreciate your words, but what do you expect from this call?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe forgiveness? A second chance? I know I don't deserve it, but—" Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a clarity she didn't expect. "Michael, I forgive you. Not for you, but for me. Carrying anger and resentment would only harm me. But a second chance, that's not possible. We've both changed, we've taken different paths. It's time to move forward." There was silence on the other end of the line, followed by a resigned sigh. "I understand. You're right, as always. I wish you all the best, Sarah." Really. After hanging up, Sarah felt strangely light. That conversation had closed an important chapter in her life. She realized she was truly ready to move on. That night, while having dinner with Olivia in the hospital room, Sarah shared what had happened. "Wow," Olivia exclaimed. "How are you feeling about all this?" Sarah smiled, taking her friend's hand. "You know, Olivia, I feel at peace. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I should be. Fighting cancer, yes, but also rediscovering my passion, my purpose. I'm looking forward to what the future holds." Olivia raised her glass of juice in a toast. "To the future, then, and to the incredible Sarah Thompson, who continues to surprise us every day." Sarah laughed, raising her own glass. "To the future," she repeated, feeling truly hopeful. As the two friends chatted and laughed, Sarah reflected on her journey so far. The cancer diagnosis, Michael's betrayal, the challenges at work, all of this could have defeated her. But instead, each obstacle had become a stepping stone for her personal growth. Looking out the hospital window at the city sprawling below, Sarah felt a wave of gratitude. She was alive, she was fighting, and more importantly, she was rediscovering herself. The path ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Sarah was truly excited to see what tomorrow would bring. The dawn brought, with it, a new energy for Sarah. After months of intensive treatment, she finally received the news she had been waiting for. The doctors considered it safe for her to continue treatment at home, with regular visits to the hospital for follow-ups. "Remember, Sarah," Dr. Anderson warned, "this doesn't mean the battle is over. We still have a long way to go, but your progress has been remarkable." Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. "I understand, Doctor. I promise to follow all recommendations, to the letter." As she packed her things to leave the hospital, Sarah reflected on everything she had experienced in that room over the past few months. The tears, the pain, but also the laughter with Olivia, the small daily victories, the ideas for the Phoenix project that had been born there. Olivia, who was helping with the packing, noticed her friend's distant look. "What are you thinking about, Sarah?" Sarah smiled, looking around the room one last time. "I'm thinking about how I entered here as one person, and I'm leaving as a completely different one." The return home was a bittersweet moment. On one hand, Sarah was happy to return to the comfort of her home. On the other, the house brought memories of her life with Michael. Memories that still hurt, even if less intensely. "Maybe it's time for some changes," Sarah commented, looking at the familiar walls with new eyes. In the days that followed, Sarah immersed herself in a renovation project. With Olivia's help, she redecorated the apartment, donated old furniture and bought new ones, changed the colors of the walls. Each change was like an act of liberation, a way of reclaiming the space as truly her own. Meanwhile, work on the Phoenix project continued at full steam. Sarah managed to establish a routine that balanced her professional responsibilities with her treatment and self-care. One afternoon, during a video call with her team, Sarah presented her expanded vision for the project. "We don't just want to create technology," she explained, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "We want to create opportunities. Imagine a program that not only offers technology training, but also mentoring, psychological support, and even incubation for startups led by young people from underprivileged communities. The team was electrified by the idea. Soon, everyone was contributing suggestions and ideas to make this vision a reality. In the middle of the meeting, Sarah noticed a familiar face among the call participants. It was Jessica, Michael's ex-mistress. After the meeting ended, Jessica asked to speak privately with Sarah. "Sarah, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to continue on the project," Jessica said, visibly nervous. "After everything that happened, I didn't expect—" Sarah gently interrupted her. "Jessica, what happened between you, Michael, and me is in the past. Your work has always been excellent, and it would be a loss for the project to push you away for personal reasons." Jessica seemed surprised by the response. "You're amazing, Sarah. I really am sorry for everything." "I know," Sarah replied, with a soft smile. "Now let's focus on the future, okay? We have a lot of work ahead of us." This conversation was a moment of realization for Sarah. She realized that she had truly overcome the hurt and resentment. Her focus now was entirely on the future and the positive impact she could create. As the weeks passed, Sarah continued her treatment at home, with regular visits to the hospital. Although there were still difficult days, she felt stronger with each passing day, both physically and emotionally. One day, while taking her morning walk in the park near her home, part of her new self-care routine, Sarah had a sudden idea. She took out her cell phone and called Emily, her assistant. "Emily, I need you to set up a meeting with the board of directors as soon as possible," she said, barely containing her excitement. "I have an important proposal to make." At the meeting, which took place 2 days later, Sarah surprised everyone with her audacious proposal. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice firm and confident, "I propose that we dedicate 10% of the company's annual profits to expand the Phoenix Project and create a foundation focused on technological education and social entrepreneurship." There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by an explosion of voices. Some board members expressed concern about the financial impact. Others praised the long-term vision. Sarah listened to all opinions patiently before responding. "I understand the concerns, but look, we're not just doing charity, we're investing in the future. By empowering young talents, we're creating a new generation of innovators who can work with us, create startups we can acquire, develop technologies we can use. It's an investment in the technological ecosystem as a whole." After hours of heated debate, Sarah's proposal was approved by a narrow margin. She left the meeting exhausted but radiant. That night, celebrating with Olivia at home, Sarah reflected on her journey. "You know, Olivia," she said, playing with the glass of sparkling water in her hands. Alcohol was still off limits due to the treatment. "A few months ago, I thought my life was over. The cancer, the divorce, it seemed like everything was falling apart. But now I feel like I'm just getting started." Olivia smiled, proud of her friend. "You've always been amazing, Sarah, but seeing you transform all this pain into something so positive, that's truly inspiring." Sarah laughed, feeling light and hopeful. "I think I finally understood what that phrase about turning lemons into lemonade means." The two friends laughed together, toasting to the future. In the months that followed, Sarah continued her treatment with renewed determination. The Phoenix Project, now expanded into a foundation, began to gain national and even international recognition. Young people from all over the country began to benefit from the education and mentoring programs. On a sunny afternoon, almost a year after her initial diagnosis, Sarah received the news she had been hoping for. She was in remission. Sitting in Dr. Anderson's office, Sarah let the tears of joy and relief flow freely. "What happens now, doctor?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. The doctor smiled gently. "Now, Sarah, you live. Continue with regular checkups. Maintain your healthy habits, but mostly enjoy each day. You fought hard to get here." Leaving the hospital, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the sun on her face. She took out her cell phone and sent a message to the WhatsApp group she had created with her Phoenix Project team. "Everyone, I have important news to share. I'm in remission." And it made me think, what do you say we create a support program for cancer patients within our foundation. Let's turn more lemons into lemonade. The enthusiastic responses didn't take long to arrive. Sarah smiled, putting her phone away. She looked up at the blue Chicago sky, feeling grateful and full of purpose. The future, which once seemed so uncertain and frightening, now opened up before her, full of possibilities. Sarah knew there were still challenges ahead, but now she faced them not with fear, but with courage and determination. She had entered this journey as a broken woman, betrayed by her husband and attacked by a terrible disease. She emerged now like a phoenix reborn from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to make a difference in the world. Sarah began to walk, her steps light and decisive. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but of one thing she was certain: whatever the challenge, she would be ready to face it. And so, with the sun shining upon her and a new page of her life opening, Sarah Thompson moved forward, ready to write the next chapter of her extraordinary story. The sun was rising over Chicago, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink when Sarah opened her eyes. It had been exactly 1 year since she received the news of her remission, and each day since then had been lived with an intensity and gratitude she had never imagined possible before. Getting up, Sarah headed to the balcony of her newly renovated apartment. The view of the awakening city still amazed her. She took a deep breath, feeling the fresh morning air fill her lungs. How good it was to be alive. Her phone vibrated, bringing her back to the present. It was a message from Emily, her faithful assistant. "Good morning, Sarah. Just reminding you that we have the grand opening of the first Phoenix Center this afternoon. Everything is ready, but I thought you might want to take one last look before the event." Sarah smiled. The Phoenix Center was the newest project of the Foundation, a space dedicated to offering comprehensive support to cancer patients and their families. It was the materialization of an idea that had been born during her own days of treatment. "Thank you, Emily," she replied. "I'll be there." In an hour. As she prepared for the day, Sarah reflected on how much her life had changed. The pain of divorce and cancer, which once seemed unbearable, was now just a distant memory, a scar that had made her stronger. The Phoenix Project, now a renowned foundation, had expanded far beyond her initial expectations. It was no longer just a technology and entrepreneurship program. It had become a movement of social transformation, touching lives across the country. Arriving at the Phoenix Center, Sarah was greeted by an enthusiastic and dedicated team. The building, once an old industrial warehouse, was now a modern and welcoming space, designed to be a haven of hope and healing. "Sarah, glad you're here," exclaimed Ryan, the young man who had once been her intern and was now one of the project managers. "We have a surprise for you." Intrigued, Sarah followed Ryan to a room at the end of the corridor. As she opened the door, she was left speechless. The walls were covered with photos and messages from people whose lives had been touched by the Phoenix Project. This is incredible," Sarah said, moved, gently running her fingers over the images and words of gratitude. "It was the team's idea," Ryan explained. "We wanted you to see the real impact your work is having." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. Each face, each message was a reminder of the purpose she had found through her own journey of pain and healing. The afternoon arrived quickly, and with it the inauguration ceremony of the Phoenix Center. The center's courtyard was full of guests, authorities, project partners, and most importantly, people who would benefit from the center's work. When the time came for Sarah to give her speech, she took the stage to warm applause. Looking at the crowd, she saw familiar and strange faces, all united by a common purpose. 2 years ago, she began, her voice firm and emotional, I received 2 pieces of news that changed my life forever. The first was that my marriage had come to an end, the second that I had cancer. A respectful silence fell over the audience. At that moment, I thought my life was over. But I was wrong. In fact, it was just beginning. Sarah continued, sharing her journey in an honest and vulnerable way. She spoke about the dark days of treatment, about how the Phoenix Project was born from her desire to give new meaning to her life, and about how each challenge became an opportunity for growth and transformation. "This center," she said, gesturing to the building behind her, is more than just a place of treatment and support. It's a symbol of hope. It's proof that we can transform our pain into purpose, our struggles into strength. As Sarah spoke, she noticed a movement at the back of the crowd. To her surprise, she saw Michael entering discreetly, accompanied by Jessica. Their gazes crossed briefly, and Sarah felt a wave of conflicting emotions. But instead of letting it shake her, she found strength in this unexpected moment. Each of us has a story, she continued, her voice gaining strength. Each of us faces battles that others cannot see, but together we can create something beautiful. From our experiences, we can be light for each other in the darkest moments. As she concluded her speech, the audience burst into applause. Sarah came down from the stage feeling light and fulfilled. She greeted people, exchanged hugs, and listened to inspiring stories from individuals whose lives had been touched by the project. At the end of the event, when most of the guests had already left, Sarah found herself face to face with Michael and Jessica. "Hi, Sarah," Michael said, looking uncomfortable. We wanted to congratulate you. What you're doing here is really incredible." Sarah looked at the couple, feeling a mix of emotions. There was a twinge of pain, yes, but also a surprising sense of peace. "Thank you for coming," she responded sincerely. "It means a lot to me." There was a moment of awkward silence before Jessica spoke. "Sarah, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear this from, but you're an inspiration. What you've built here, the way you've transformed your experience into something so positive, it's really admirable." Sarah smiled softly. "Thank you, Jessica. You know, sometimes things need to break so we can rebuild them in a better way. That's what happened to me." After Michael and Jessica left, Olivia approached Sarah. "Are you okay?" she asked, concerned. "I saw you were talking to them." Sarah took a deep breath, looking at the sky that was beginning to darken. "You know what, Olivia? I'm better than okay. I realized I really have moved past all of that. Seeing the two of them today, it didn't hurt. In fact, it made me realize how much I've grown, how much I've changed." Olivia hugged her friend, proud. "You're amazing, Sarah. Look at all you've accomplished." The two friends stood there, watching the city lights come on in the distance. Sarah felt a wave of gratitude for everything she had experienced, even for the difficult moments that had brought her here. "And now," Olivia asked, "what's next for the incredible Sarah Thompson?" Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with possibilities. "Now? Now the sky's the limit, Olivia. We have so much work ahead of us, so many lives to touch. And you know what? I can't wait to see what the future holds for us." As they walked back to the Phoenix Center, Sarah knew this was just the first page of a new chapter in her life, a chapter full of purpose, hope, and endless possibilities. And she was more than ready to write it. The months that followed the inauguration of the Phoenix Center were a whirlwind of activity for Sarah. The success of the project attracted national and international attention, bringing new opportunities and challenges. On a Wednesday morning, Sarah was in her office reviewing some reports when Emily entered, looking excited. "Sarah, you won't believe it. We just received an invitation from the UN. They want you to give a talk about the Phoenix Project at the next conference on social innovation in New York." Sarah was speechless. "The UN? Emily, that's incredible." As she digested the news, Sarah felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. It was an incredible opportunity, but it also meant exposing her personal story on a global stage. In the weeks leading up to the conference, Sarah worked tirelessly on her speech, determined to convey not just the details of the project, but also the essence of transformation and hope that motivated it. On the eve of her departure for New York, Sarah decided to make a surprise visit to the Phoenix Center. Upon arriving there, she was greeted by a scene that deeply moved her. A group of patients undergoing treatment was having a painting class, their faces lit up with smiles despite the challenges they faced. One of the patients, a lady of about 60 named Mrs. Johnson, recognized Sarah and called her over. "Come, my dear," said Mrs. Johnson, offering a brush. "Join us." Sarah hesitated for a moment, but soon found herself sitting among the patients, brush in hand, creating a canvas full of vibrant colors. As she painted, she listened to the patients' stories of struggle, of hope, of small daily victories. At the end of the session, Mrs. Johnson held Sarah's hand. "You know, my child, before coming here I thought my life was over, but this place, you've given us back hope. You've reminded us that we still have a lot to live for, a lot to give." With tears in her eyes, Sarah hugged Mrs. Johnson. "Thank you," she whispered. "You can't imagine how much your stories mean to me." That night, back in her apartment, Sarah completely rewrote her speech for the UN. Now she knew exactly what she needed to say. The day of the conference arrived quickly. Standing backstage at the UN auditorium, Sarah took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. Olivia, who had traveled with her to offer moral support, gave her a tight hug. "You're going to crush it." "Sarah," Olivia whispered, "just be yourself." When her name was announced, Sarah took the stage to polite applause. Looking at the diverse audience, with representatives from various countries, she felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "Good afternoon, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I'm here today to talk about the Phoenix Project, but really, I'm here to talk about rebirth." Sarah then shared her personal story, the cancer, the divorce, the moments of despair. She talked about how the project was born from her own pain and how it transformed into something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. "The Phoenix Project isn't just about technology or entrepreneurship," she explained. "It's about giving people the tools to rebuild themselves, to find purpose even in the darkest moments." She then shared stories of people like Mrs. Johnson, of young people from communities who now led their own startups, of families who found support and hope at the Phoenix Center. "Each of us has the power to become a phoenix," Sarah concluded, her voice charged with emotion. "To rise from the ashes of our difficulties and fly even higher. What the Phoenix Project does is simply remind people of this power that already exists within them." When Sarah finished her speech, the auditorium erupted in applause. Many in the audience were visibly moved. In the days following the conference, Sarah was approached by representatives from various countries, all interested in implementing programs similar to the Phoenix Project in their nations. It was more than she could have ever dreamed of. Back in Chicago, Sarah met with her team to discuss the next steps. The international interest opened up new possibilities, but also brought new challenges. "We need to be careful not to lose our essence as we expand," Sarah cautioned during the meeting. "Each community has its own needs and realities. We can't simply replicate what we did here. We need to adapt, collaborate, listen." In the months that followed, Sarah traveled to various countries, helping to establish partnerships and adapt the Phoenix Project model to different cultural contexts. It was exhausting work, but incredibly rewarding. On one of these trips, while visiting a small village in India where a pilot program was being implemented, Sarah had a moment of epiphany. Observing local children playing with tablets provided by the project, their faces lit up with curiosity and enthusiasm. She realized the true reach of what they had created. That night in her hotel room, Sarah wrote in her diary, "Today I saw the future. I saw hope in the eyes of children who previously had no access to technology. I saw determination on the faces of women learning to code. I saw entire communities transforming through knowledge and opportunity. And I thought, if we can do this here, we can do it anywhere. The Phoenix Project is no longer just a project. It's a global movement of transformation." Back in Chicago, Sarah decided it was time to take the next step. She called a meeting with the company's board and presented her boldest proposal yet. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice full of conviction, "I propose that we transform our company, that we make the Phoenix Project not just a social responsibility initiative, but the heart of our business. Let's become a company whose main goal is to create positive social impact through technology and education." There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by heated debate. Some board members expressed concern about the financial risks, others were enthusiastic about the vision. After hours of discussion, Sarah's proposal was approved by a narrow margin. It was the beginning of a new era for the company and for the Phoenix Project. That night, celebrating with Olivia in her apartment, Sarah felt truly at peace for the first time in years. "You know, Olivia," she said, looking at the illuminated city through the window. 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. Now I feel like it's just beginning. Olivia raised her glass in a toast. To Sarah Thompson, the true phoenix, may she continue to rise and inspire the world. Sarah smiled, feeling grateful for everything, the highs and lows, the victories and defeats that had brought her to this point. The future was bright and full of possibilities, and she could hardly wait to see what would come next. As the city lights shone outside, Sarah knew her journey was far from over. In fact, it was just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter, a chapter of global growth, of impact on a scale, of transforming lives around the world, and she was more than ready for this new adventure. The year that followed Sarah's company transformation was a roller coaster of emotions and challenges. The decision to put the Phoenix Project at the center of the business attracted worldwide attention, but it also brought with it a series of unexpected obstacles. On a Monday morning, Sarah arrived at the office to find Emily waiting for her with a worried expression. "Sarah, we have a problem," said Emily, handing her a tablet. "The press is questioning our intentions. Some critics are suggesting that the expansion of the Phoenix Project is just a marketing ploy." Sarah frowned as she read the headlines. It was painful to see her work, born from such a personal and transformative experience, being questioned in this way. "We need to act fast," said Sarah, her mind already working on solutions. "Schedule a press conference for this afternoon. It's time to be completely transparent about our goals and methods." The press conference was intense. Sarah faced tough questions with honesty and passion, sharing not just the project's successes, but also the challenges and lessons learned along the way. "The Phoenix Project isn't perfect," she admitted to the journalists. "We're constantly learning and evolving. But our mission is genuine. We want to use technology and education as tools for social transformation. It's not about marketing. It's about real impact on people's lives." Her sincerity seemed to touch many of those present, and in the days that followed, the narrative in the media began to change. More people started sharing stories of how the project had impacted their lives. However, the challenges didn't stop there. As the Phoenix Project expanded globally, Sarah and her team faced complex issues of cultural adaptation, logistics, and regulation in different countries. On a trip to Kenya to oversee the implementation of a new center, Sarah found herself facing an ethical dilemma. The local government was pushing for greater control over the project's curriculum, something that could compromise the mission of empowerment and free thinking that was at the core of the Phoenix Project. Sitting in her hotel room in Nairobi, Sarah struggled with the decision. Giving in to the government's demands would facilitate the project's expansion in the country, but at what cost? That night, she made a video call with Olivia. "Olivia, I'm at a crossroads," Sarah confided. "If we give in, we can help more people, but we'd be compromising our fundamental values." Olivia listened attentively before responding. "Sarah, remember what you always say. The Phoenix Project isn't just about teaching skills, it's about empowering people. If you compromise that, what's left?" Olivia's words resonated with Sarah. She knew what she needed to do. The next day, in a tense meeting with local authorities, Sarah stood firm. "We understand and respect the government's concerns," she said, "but we cannot compromise the essence of our project. Perhaps it's not the right time for us to expand here, but we're open to continuing the dialogue to find a path that benefits everyone." The decision was difficult and resulted in the temporary suspension of expansion plans in Kenya. However, Sarah's stance was widely praised by human rights and education advocates around the world. Back in the United States, Sarah faced another challenge: pressure from investors concerned about the company's new direction. In a tense board meeting, she passionately defended her vision. "Gentlemen, I understand your concerns," Sarah said, her voice firm, "but I ask you to look beyond the quarterly numbers. What we're building here is a new business model, one that balances profit and purpose. This not only differentiates us in the market, but also positions us as leaders in a world that increasingly values companies with positive social impact." After hours of heated debate, Sarah managed to maintain the board's support, but she knew she needed to deliver results to keep that trust. The following months were of intense work. Sarah and her team dedicated themselves to refining the Phoenix Project model, making it more efficient and scalable without losing sight of its original mission. One day, while working late in her office, Sarah received an unexpected visit. It was Ryan, the former intern who now held a leadership position in the project. "Sarah, sorry to bother you so late, but I thought you'd like to see this," he said, handing her an envelope. Inside was a letter from a young girl from an underprivileged community in Chicago. The girl, only 15 years old, had created an app to help visually impaired people navigate the city, inspired by what she had learned in the Phoenix Project. "Ms. Thompson," the letter said, "before the Phoenix Project, I never imagined that someone like me could create something that would change lives. You didn't just teach me to code, you showed me that I can be an agent of change in the world. Thank you for believing in us." Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she read. This was proof that they were on the right track. "Ryan," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "this is why we do what we do. This is why it's worth facing all the challenges." That night, as she returned home, Sarah reflected on her journey. The past few years had been a roller coaster of emotions and challenges, but each obstacle overcome only strengthened her conviction in the Phoenix Project's mission. Looking out the window at the city that never sleeps, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that the path ahead would still be full of challenges, but she was also certain that each life touched, each mind open to new possibilities, made it all worthwhile. With a smile, Sarah took out her laptop and began to sketch ideas for the next big step of the Phoenix Project. The future was bright, and she could hardly wait to see what would come next. Time flew by, and before Sarah realized it, 5 years had passed since the transformation of her company and the global expansion of the Phoenix Project. What had begun as an idea born from her own journey of overcoming had now become an international movement, touching lives in dozens of countries. On a sunny spring morning, Sarah was in her office reviewing the latest impact reports of the project when Emily entered with a radiant smile. "Sarah, you won't believe it. We just received confirmation. You've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize." The news caught Sarah completely by surprise. She was speechless for a moment, trying to process the information. Nobel Peace Prize? But how? She finally managed to say. Emily explained that the Nobel Committee had recognized the work of the Phoenix Project in promoting education, innovation and peace in conflict areas and underprivileged communities around the world. In the days that followed, Sarah was flooded with congratulatory messages and interview requests. While the media celebrated her achievement, she felt divided. On one hand, she was deeply honored by the recognition. On the other, she felt that the true merit belonged to the thousands of people who had made the Phoenix Project a reality. One afternoon, while reflecting on all this in her apartment, Sarah received an unexpected call. It was Michael, her ex-husband. "Hi, Sarah," he said, his voice hesitant. I just wanted to congratulate you on the nomination. It's really incredible what you've managed to do." The conversation was brief and a bit uncomfortable, but Sarah realized she no longer felt any bitterness. On the contrary, she felt a strange gratitude. After all, if it hadn't been for that painful moment in her life, perhaps the Phoenix Project would never have been born. "Thank you, Michael," she responded sincerely. "I hope you're doing well." After hanging up, Sarah decided it was time to do something she had been putting off for a long time. She picked up the phone and called Dr. Anderson, the oncologist who had treated her years ago. "Dr. Anderson," she said when he answered, "I'd like to make a donation to the hospital. I want to create a special wing for cancer patients, integrating the Phoenix Project model. What do you think?" The doctor was moved by the proposal, and together they began to plan how they could use the technology and methodology of the Phoenix Project to support cancer patients in treatment and their families. In the weeks leading up to the Nobel ceremony, Sarah immersed herself in this new project. She visited hospitals, talked to patients and doctors, and worked tirelessly to adapt the Phoenix Project to this new context. Finally, the day of the ceremony in Oslo arrived. Dressed in an elegant blue suit, Sarah took the stage to receive the award and give her speech. Looking at the audience, she saw familiar faces: Olivia, Emily, members of her team, and even some of the first beneficiaries of the Phoenix Project. Taking a deep breath, she began. 7 years ago, I was in a hospital bed, fighting cancer and a broken heart. At that moment, I thought my life was over. Little did I know it was just beginning. Sarah then shared the story of the Phoenix Project, not as a narrative of personal success, but as a testimony to the power of human resilience and collective transformation. This award, she continued, her voice charged with emotion, doesn't belong to me. It belongs to every person who dared to dream, who got up after a fall, who reached out to help others. The Phoenix Project isn't about one person or one organization. It's about the incredible potential that exists in each of us to rise from the ashes and create a better world. As she concluded her speech, Sarah made a surprising announcement. Today, I'm happy to announce that the entire value of this prize will be allocated to the creation of a global fund to expand access to technological education in conflict areas and underprivileged communities. Because I believe that true peace can only be achieved when we give each person the tools to shape their own destiny. The audience erupted in applause. Many had tears in their eyes, touched by Sarah's sincerity and vision. In the days following the ceremony, Sarah was approached by world leaders, philanthropists, and entrepreneurs, all wanting to collaborate with the Phoenix Project. The Nobel recognition had opened doors she never imagined possible. Back in Chicago, in a meeting with her team, Sarah reflected on the path traveled and what was still to come. The Nobel is an incredible honor, she said, but our work is far from over. In fact, I feel like we're just getting started. We have the opportunity to create even deeper and more lasting changes. That night, alone in her apartment, Sarah picked up the old diary where she had written her thoughts during cancer treatment. Leafing through the pages, she was surprised at how much she had changed and grown. On the last page, she wrote, "Life is unpredictable. It can knock us down when we least expect it. But it can also give us wings to fly higher than we ever dreamed. The secret is to never give up, to always look for a purpose greater than ourselves. Today, I look back and see that every challenge, every pain, every tear brought me here. And I'm grateful for every moment of this journey, because it's not the destination that defines us, but the path we choose to travel and the lives we touch along the way." The recognition of the Nobel Peace Prize brought a wave of new opportunities and challenges for Sarah and the Phoenix Project. In the months following the ceremony, the demand for partnerships and expansions of the project grew exponentially. On an autumn morning, Sarah was in her office analyzing collaboration proposals from various countries when Olivia entered, looking concerned. "Sarah, have you seen the news?" asked Olivia, showing her tablet. Sarah frowned as she read the headline, "Critics question long-term effectiveness of Phoenix Project." The article cited a recent study claiming that, although the project had immediate impact, its benefits were not sustained in the long term in some communities. "This is unexpected," Sarah murmured, feeling a tightness in her chest. After so much success, she wasn't prepared for this kind of criticism. "What are we going to do?" asked Olivia. Sarah was silent for a moment, reflecting. Then, with determination in her voice, she replied, "We're going to do what we've always done, Olivia. We're going to learn and evolve." In the days that followed, Sarah immersed herself in a deep analysis of the project's data. She convened meetings with her team, external experts, and most importantly, with members of the communities served by the Phoenix Project. During one of these meetings, a young woman named Aisha from a community in the Middle East shared a perspective that changed everything. "The Phoenix Project has given us incredible tools," said Aisha, "but in some areas, there's a lack of infrastructure for us to fully apply what we've learned. We need more holistic support." Aisha's words were a wake-up call for Sarah. She realized that to create truly lasting changes, the Phoenix Project needed to go beyond technological education. It needed to address the systemic barriers that prevented progress in many communities. With this new vision, Sarah began working on an ambitious reformulation of the Phoenix Project. She proposed the creation of Phoenix ecosystems, community hubs, that would not only offer technological education, but also support in areas such as entrepreneurship, health, infrastructure, and sustainable development. The implementation of this new model was not easy. Sarah faced resistance from some investors who feared that expanding the project's scope could dilute its impact, but she remained firm in her vision. "We cannot ignore the complexity of the challenges we face," she argued in a tense board meeting. "If we want to create real and lasting change, we need to adopt a more holistic approach." After months of planning and negotiations, the first Phoenix ecosystem was launched in a community in the south side of Chicago. The pilot project included a technology center, a startup incubator, a health clinic, and a sustainable infrastructure development program. Sarah spent weeks on site, working side by side with the community to ensure the project met their real needs. It was an intense period, full of challenges, but also deeply rewarding moments. One afternoon, while observing a group of local young entrepreneurs presenting their business ideas, Sarah felt a wave of emotion. She saw in the eyes of those young people the same fire, the same determination that had driven her on her own journey of overcoming. That night, sitting on the porch of her temporary accommodation, Sarah wrote in her diary, "Today, I saw the future, not on high-tech screens or in advanced artificial intelligences, but in the bright eyes of young people who for the first time saw a path to their dreams. The Phoenix Project is evolving, just as I have evolved. We're learning that true transformation doesn't come just from technical skills, but from an ecosystem of support, opportunities, and hope." As the first Phoenix ecosystem began to show promising results, global interest in the new model exploded. Sarah found herself traveling the world, from remote communities in Africa to underprivileged neighborhoods in large metropolises, helping to implement and adapt the model to different realities. The work was exhausting, but deeply gratifying. Sarah felt that finally, she was fulfilling the promise she had made to herself years ago, when she was fighting cancer, to use her second chance in life to make a real difference in the world. Amidst all this activity, Sarah received news that caught her by surprise. She had been invited to give a speech at the UN about the role of technology and social innovation in building world peace. Preparing for the speech, Sarah reflected on her journey. From the cancer diagnosis to the Nobel Prize, from heartbreak to the creation of a global movement, each challenge, each victory had shaped not only the Phoenix Project, but herself as well. On the day of the speech, Sarah took the podium feeling the weight of responsibility, but also a deep sense of purpose. Looking at the diverse audience of world leaders, she began, "A few years ago, I thought my story was about personal overcoming. Today, I understand that it's about something much bigger. It's about the transformative power of hope, education, and opportunity. It's about how when we give people the tools to shape their own destiny, we can create a more just, peaceful, and prosperous world for all." As she spoke, Sarah felt a growing certainty. The Phoenix Project, which had been born from her own journey of rebirth, had become something much bigger than herself. It was a movement, a force for change that would continue to grow and evolve, touching lives far beyond her own time.